Dear colleagues, we have quorum, we can start. Like usual. So, good morning to everyone. I would like to inform you about the matters discussed today in the morning at the Bureau meeting. We finalized the work done during these days. Now, as we note, we had done 29 properties inscripted in heritage list, and one was extended. The total number of the heritage sites inscribed in the list now 1,121. So today it is proposed to first close the item 7B, which is still open to examine the state of conservation of Lamu Old Town, Kenya, draft decision 7B 107, which has been discussed by a drafting group. Then we will have to examine draft decision 7.2 and 7.3 under the general item 7. And after that, we will come to item 8C and resume our discussion on general item 8. We will try to proceed today also paragraphs 6, 10A, 10B, and in the afternoon items 9A, 9B, and 11B. I call upon your cooperation once again to help us facilitating the debates and the intervention to avoid any delay in our schedule today. So, of course, everyone has right to make intervention, but according to the schedule, we have to move as planned. So, if you don't mind, we will start the discussion. You will recall that it was decided to examine the general decisions 43, 7.2 and 7.3 on the state of conservation of World Heritage properties at the end of the debates on items 7.8 and 7b. This agenda item was introduced on Tuesday morning by the director of the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies. Before we move to the second pending draft decision, I would like to know whether there are any comments on this matter. I don't see anyone. Now I invite you to adopt the draft decision 43-72, but may I ask the rapporteur about the additions to that, maybe some amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A working group was formed to deal with this property, but only paragraph 7, and we do have some previously proposed and I think later proposed amendments also to this decision. Paragraph 1 and 2 remain the same. Paragraph 3, the amendment reads, regrets that the state party provides only limited information on the state of conservation of the property and reiterates its request to the state party as a matter of urgency to submit to the World Heritage Centre for review by the advisory bodies, A, an updated, clearly delineated map of the property and its enlarged buffer zone, which should be formalised through a request for minor boundary modification in line with paragraph 164 of the operational guidelines. So you can see the proposed deleted text there. Then it remains unamended, I think, until the paragraph 7b. This was what the drafting group was formed to look at. So further requests the state party to revise the draft strategic environmental assessment of the LAPSET project by, and B would read, urgently implementing the decisions of the National Environmental Tribunal of 26 June 2019, number net 196 of 2016, in respect to the development of Lamu coal project that requires the state party to conduct a fresh environmental impact assessment. And I would just note there that I've highlighted that it was proposed to annex the 50-page decision. That's not a practical solution for the Secretariat, nor a very good precedent to set. But what the Secretariat, or myself, is proposing is that we reference with a footnote the exact web link to that complete annex. and then, so I'll just let the team note that that's the proposal to have the exact web link footnoted. And then paragraph 8 is proposed for deletion. I think that's not by the drafting group, that was just for 7. And then I understand we have a new paragraph 8 proposed which might come off the floor for us. But other than that, there are no more amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So this draft was the result of the work of the working group, and I think that there is certain agreement between the members of the group to give this version. But we need also some comments, if there are any.
Yeah, Norway.
Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm sorry for taking the floor on this because there might have been a little bit of a confusion because of the complexity and the different layers of impact assessments here with the SEA, the HIA, and the EIA. And I don't know if it would be helpful to try to ask ICOMOS if we managed to capture the essence of what the intention was. And there's also on a very short notice, and I am, please accept my pardon for that, been sent a potential wording for a new para 8 to try to encapsulate what we tried to agree on in the drafting group. So I'm sorry for this very last moment confusion, but possibly it would be helpful if ICOMOS could try to explain if we managed to capture the essence of what we tried. Thank you.
Any other comments? ICOMOS? ICOMOS, please, you are welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I can just try and explain the background. And SEA was undertaken for the main LabSet project, and earlier an HIA also for the main project. But the main project did not include the coal plant or the airport. So an EIA was undertaken for the coal plant and an HIA for the airport. And one of the difficulties we've had throughout this process is to get some linkage between the impact assessments and outstanding universal value. And that's why in the original draft, there was a request for the revision of the LabSet SEA in para 8, because this doesn't address OUV or cultural heritage adequately. At the moment, what is proposed is an environmental impact assessment for the coal plant, and that leaves open the question as to how the impact on OUV might be assessed if it is only an environmental impact assessment. So I put forward this information to try and elucidate the complexities of the situation, but I think underpinning all that is somehow the need for the committee to understand the impact on OUV of these various projects.
Thank you very much. So, what is the proposals of the Norway again, please?
Maybe we could ask the rapporteur if the text was received, and if not, I can try to read it out. The proposed new para 8 would read, requests furthermore that the state party submit a revised LabSet SEA, a heritage impact assessment and environmental impact assessment of the Lamu coal plant that considers the impact on the OUV of Lamu Old Town, and other requested documents above to the World Heritage Center for review before proceeding with the Lamu coal plant. Thank you.
Let us have it on the screen. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just read that very slowly, and it might give our French colleagues a chance to catch up. requests furthermore that the state parties submit a revised LAPSET SEA, a heritage impact assessment and environmental impact assessment of the Lamu coal plant that considers the impacts on the OUV of Lamu Old Town and other requested documents above to the World Heritage Centre for review before proceeding with the Lamu coal plant. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Australia, please.
Good morning, Chair. I just wondered whether it should be in the third line there, an environmental impact assessment of the proposal for a Lamu coal plant, because it doesn't actually exist at the moment. So it kind of makes the last part of the sentence strange if we don't have the proposal for or the proposed coal plant.
I think it's reasonable. Kuwait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might have didn't hear the advisory board, but correct me, please, if I was wrong. I think I heard that they said they needed a heritage impact assessment for the airport, not for the airport and the coal plant. Was that right or not? According to what I heard from the advisory board, and if not, my apologies.
Thomas, please.
What I said was that an HIA had already been requested for the Manda Airport, but I also raised the issue of how we understand impact on OUV for the coal plant. So ideally, the EIA for the coal plant should either include an HIA or an HIA should be undertaken separately.
Okay. So, Australia, you have...
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure where we are. I mean, I'm not sure that it's a proposal for the Lamu coal plant as we suggested, or it's the plans for, or I'm not sure where we are in relation to the previous paragraphs about the decision that we had earlier under paragraph 7b. So we have, in respect to the development of the Lamu coal project, just needs that the language needs to be clear that we're talking about the same thing.
Rapporteur.
So I think if we refer to the Lamu coal project rather than plant, that would be consistent. I'll just read that. Yeah, I think if we can say Lamu coal project for the the proposal for the Lamu coal project that considers the impacts on the OUV of Lamu Old Town and other, etc., before proceeding with the Lamu coal, may as well say project there too.
Australia, please. Satisfied? Okay. Norway is okay with such kind of wording? Fine. Tanzania, please.
Thank you, Chair. If we are inserting that paragraph from the distinguished delegate from Norway, then paragraph 9, I would suggest that where we are saying we wanted to invite a monitoring mission with a view to assess, because all these things will have to be done, I would suggest that with the view to assess, we get rid of that statement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other opinions? Rapporteur.
I think if I understand correctly, what the distinguished delegate from United Republic of Tanzania is suggesting is removing from paragraph 9 from with a view to assessing, perhaps to the end of the paragraph.
Can we agree with such kind of wording? Australia? Okay.
Mr. Chair, this isn't an amendment that we could agree with. We've talked a lot about the importance of consistency of decision-making over the course of this meeting, and we certainly hold the view that because of the ongoing dialogue we've had about the need to address these particular issues, that we are at the point where it's appropriate for the committee to be signalling its expectations through the inclusion of these words.
Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I wish a good morning to all colleagues. I would just like to echo what my colleague from Australia has just said. We would rather keep that word, and we don't really see how the proposal from Norway would somehow imply that this part should be deleted. So we'd rather keep it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Norway?
Thank you, Chair. We also wish to echo what was proposed by the colleagues from Australia and Hungary. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we find consensus if Tanzania is not insisting on the deletion of this matter, so we can approve like that? Tanzania, please.
Chair, thank you. Throughout this committee decisions, we have been deleting that type of wording in the decision on some of the other properties that had such problems. Looking at the intensity and the number of recommendations in the decisions we are putting to the state party, I don't think a monitoring mission will be able to see the implementation of all these decisions to be able to come to that conclusion. So to my understanding, we would rather wait for those things to be done. The mission can go, but without having that objective in their making. Thank you.
Australia.
Mr. Chair, we have been considering these on a case-by-case basis, so I think it is appropriate we do it on those terms. My colleagues just pointed out to me that if we scroll down to, I think it's item 11, there is there's a second reference there to this exact thing. So I think it is actually correct to delete it from 9, and it is better placed at the bottom where it is now, where it's repeated, because it is a matter for the committee to consider.
Thank you very much. So can we, Hungary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I don't want to insist on keeping in that paragraph if the committee doesn't wish to, but I still think that there would be no problem with leaving that part in paragraph 9, since we are talking about what the reactive monitoring mission's aim would be. As I said, of course, provided that we still have it in paragraph 11, and I really don't wish to insist, we can delete it, but just wish to state for the record that I think that it was appropriate to have that part in paragraph 9. Thank you.
Uganda, please.
Thanks, Chair. In regard to paragraph 9 and the deletion or the proposed maintenance or deletion, I think the reason we get these missions on site is just not to go and prejudge. It should be for the purpose of proper enhancement of management of the sites. And so it would be wrong for the missions to go with the prejudgment to go and list the sites on danger, because we have a proposal, we have a procedure on how sites are put on danger. So, but basically I think the mission should be going to actually enhance the assessment for the better management of the World Heritage Site.
Thank you. Norway.
Thank you, Chair. Fully understanding the sentiments of the previous speakers, and we also tend to echo what was just said by our colleague from Hungary, but in the spirit of trying to reach a consensus on a decision here, we can also agree with Australia that we can delete it from this para, and because the language is already retained in 11. Thank you.
Thank you. Burkina Faso.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. En effet, nous avons écouté les explications qui ont été fournies par ICOMOS et également la proposition que l'Australie a faite dans la mesure où cette idée est reflétée au niveau du paragraphe 11. Nous ne pensons pas qu'il soit opportun de le maintenir deux fois dans le même texte. Donc, nous soutenons l'idée de buffet, et comme l'a proposé la Tanzanie, et cette idée au niveau du paragraphe 9. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Now we have common consensus that we are deleting this part from the paragraph 9, and we, because we have some similar wording and the order in paragraph 11, and we leave it there. Australia?
Chair, I'm just suggesting that the section of that paragraph in line with paragraph 179 of the operational guidelines could go into the sentence in paragraph 11 that we're discussing.
Can you put it on the screen? Thank you. So, Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair. If you put in that paragraph, that sentence, that last sentence, now you are deleting it. Yes. If we put up that sentence, then we don't have to write those words. We just go as per para, 183 to 189, and we get out of that in view to consider in the case of confirmation. It is not necessary anymore.
Can you? We're coming to quite a situation because there is no sense then deleting it from the 11 if we... Rapporteur, please.
I think if we just scroll up, I'll confirm what paragraph 9 now says. Following the security clearance by the United Nations Development of Safety and Security, requests moreover the state party to invite a joint World Heritage Centre, ICMOS-ICROM, reactive monitoring mission to the property to review the process and conclusions of the various environmental and heritage impact assessments, the stakeholder engagement processes and the state of conservation of the property. And then paragraph 11... finally requests the state party to submit to the World Heritage Centre by 1 February 2020 an updated report on the state of conservation of the property and the implementation of the above for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 44th session in 2020, with a view to considering, in the case of confirmation of the ascertained or potential danger to OUV, and in line with paragraph 179 of the operational guidelines, the possible inscription of the property on the list of World Heritage in Danger. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We approve this wording. Thank you very much. I don't see any objections, and thank you for your consensus. So we can move to the approval of the decision 43, COM 7B 107 adopted like proposed in the last version. Thank you very much. Now we move to the item 7.2 and 7.3. There are some amendments. If there is no comment, I would like to give the floor to rapporteur to submit the draft. Seven two and 7.3. 7.2 now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there was, okay, I can read the amendments. Sorry, I'll read the proposed amendments for 7.2. 1 to 4 are as previously. Paragraph 5, there's a proposed amendment by Burkina Faso, Angola, the United Republic of Tanzania and Uganda. Thanks the State Party of Mali for the urgent actions that have been put in place to ensure the safety of communities in and around the property, and encourages the State Party to also take into account in its actions the protection of the property's rich cultural heritage, and to do so in collaboration with the stakeholders involved in the establishment of long-term peace in Mali. The former paragraph 5, 6 and 7 and 8. These are unamended until we get to paragraph 12, where this is a new 12, proposed by Azerbaijan. Thanks the State Party of Poland for the efforts to widely disseminate the Warsaw Recommendation on recovery and reconstruction of cultural heritage, as well as the proceedings of the International Conference, The Challenges of World Heritage Recovery, held in Warsaw in May 2018. Former paragraph 12 remains the same. 14, also proposed by Azerbaijan, requests the World Heritage Centre, ICOMOS and ICROM, and the states parties to the World Heritage Convention to continue the reflection on the recovery and reconstruction of World Heritage properties, and asks the World Heritage Centre and advisory bodies to report back to the World Heritage Committee on the progress made in improving advice in this regard. And I don't believe we have any more amendments proposed for this decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Burkina Faso, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Burkina Faso, tout en appuyant le projet de décision 43 comme 7.2, se félicite des paragraphes 4 et 5 qui sont consacrés au Mali. Nous avons suivi le lundi dernier la déclaration de l'honorable ministre de la Culture du Mali, dans laquelle elle a informé le comité des nombreuses pertes en vie humaine ainsi que des dégradations des biens culturels observés dans les villages maliens, qui sont le résultat de manœuvres de création de conflits intercommunautaires par des groupes terroristes. Aussi, pour mieux sensibiliser et polariser l'attention des partenaires et des experts internationaux en vue de soutenir le Mali dans ses efforts de conservation du patrimoine culturel des falaises de Bandiagara et également ses efforts de construction de paix durable, le Burkina Faso ainsi que d'autres pays ont proposé ce léger amendement au paragraphe 5 du projet de décision. Ce projet d'amendement est également soutenu par plusieurs pays, notamment la Tunisie, le Brésil, l'Azerbaïdjan, l'Espagne, la Norvège, la Bosnie-Herzégovine. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Australia, please.
Mr. Chairman, earlier in this session, Australia outlined its views on the substance of what we think should be addressed in the revision of the committee's climate change policy. But we need more than a policy. We also need action, and action needs resources. And we all know too well the sorry state of the World Heritage Fund and the reluctance of states parties to make larger contributions to it, with a few notable exceptions. This is why the Australian Government has taken the decision to invest in a very important initiative with the World Heritage Centre aimed at changing this funding reality. We're investing $375,000 US in seed funding to engage professional expertise to design and implement a strategy to secure funding to build climate change resilience in World Heritage properties inscribed for their natural values. This strategy will seek public, business and philanthropic support by demonstrating the value of investing in securing the common heritage of mankind in a changing climate. The objective of this initiative is to establish a sustainable funding source to improve the capacity of World Heritage property managers in developing countries to prepare measures to adapt to climate change within their properties and to build resilience. We're making this investment because we recognise that the sort of expertise to develop and deliver such strategies doesn't exist naturally in UNESCO or within governments. It's not our core business. We've tried everything we can to convince states parties to increase their contributions to the World Heritage Fund, as you know, but little has materialised. So just as we need a whole new way of thinking about adaptation and resilience, so we need to shift and adapt how we approach funding World Heritage. We need more partners willing to make climate change resilience action in World Heritage properties an essential element of any social impact investment portfolio. I hope that through this seed funding we can stimulate more states parties to invest in this critical initiative and turn it into a full-blown fundraising campaign to deliver substantial new funding for World Heritage. Mr Chairman, last year in Decision 42-7, the committee requested that the World Heritage Centre develop a proposal for sharing in the World Heritage marketplace funds to support a workshop to assist states parties with sites on the list of World Heritage in danger to develop and implement prioritised, staged and costed action plans. And the committee noted that these plans could then be linked to requests for international assistance and shared on the marketplace. Today we want to reiterate the importance of the Centre developing this proposal and ask that it be done as a matter of priority. We had an excellent discussion last week about the Reactive Monitoring Mission Review, a review that underlined the importance of developing exactly these sorts of action plans that the committee asked for. So our decision last year was made with the strong support of the African members of the committee as part of our emerging focus on Priority Africa, and we see it as being essential that this work be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. First of all, I would like to briefly mention that Azerbaijan supports the amendments presented by Burkina Faso and several other countries to the para 5 of the concerned draft decision. And also we would like briefly explain the rationale for our amendments to the articles 11, paragraphs 11 and 13. First of all, we had a consultation with the State Party of Poland, and with this in mind, we just proposed the correction of the exact name of the Warsaw Recommendation, which is the recommendation on the recovery and reconstruction of cultural heritage, whereas the name of the international conference is the Challenges of the World Heritage Recovery. Regarding the paragraph 13, which is now, I say, the new para 14, the rationale is just to be more inclusive and to add the state parties to the process, and also in the second part to add the terminology recovery, because as an outcome of the conference in Warsaw, it was mentioned that reconstruction is a part of recovery. So with this in mind, we propose these amendments. Thanks so much, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Netherlands has a floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Since it's the first time the Netherlands takes the floor, we firstly wish to express our gratitude to the government of Azerbaijan for hosting this meeting. We express our appreciation to the Chairperson for chairing this meeting so efficiently and on time. On behalf of the Netherlands, as well as delegations of Denmark, Ireland, New Zealand, Sweden and Switzerland, we take the floor. Over the past few weeks, we have experienced moments of joy as well as concerns. We have seen the inscription of many outstanding and universally important sites onto the World Heritage List. We've seen how multiple state parties have followed the recommendations by the advisory bodies. The discussion showed the need to align decisions with the agreements and principles as set out in the operational guidelines with regard to the inscription. The operational guidelines form the basis for the implementation and interpretation of the Convention, also with regard to the inscription of the sites. The system of deferral and referral especially allows the proper steps, procedures and timeframes to fulfill the requirements as outlined in the operational guidelines. This year's session illustrates the responsibility that the committee has to work and decide in line with the overall guidelines, which we agreed upon. The committee should avoid making decisions at one meeting, which leads to complications in the decision-making process at subsequent meetings. We, state parties, and the committee in particular, should keep in sight the essence of our presence here, to implement the Convention and to safeguard our world's natural and cultural heritage. However, we have yet seen a discrepancy between the recommendations put forward by the advisory bodies and the final decisions in the committee. Inscription on the World Heritage List is first and foremost an instrument to succeed in the preservation of our world heritage. It should be a means rather than an end, to avoid discrepancies in decision-making and to ensure long-term proper conservation. Working in line with the guidelines is indispensable. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We have one NGO which wanted to make intervention. Where is? She's there on the right. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. On behalf of World Heritage Watch, let me convey the statement on Notre Dame Cathedral of Tournai, Belgium. Currently, several renovations, new constructions, urban renewals, and demolition happen in the buffer zone of the cathedral and belfry. Three of them deserve our attention. The first one, the extension project of the Museum of Fine Arts. The restoration of this building is planned. The museum will be removed. The works of art will be removed, and the spaces will be used as cafeteria and place of leisure. A new building will be attached to the museum building, and a tower will be constructed. The second one, the rehabilitation and extension of the Hôtel des Anciens Prêtres. Located at the foot of the cathedral, the building of the old priests will be rehabilitated in the next 6 years. In its courtyard, a tower structure will be built, extending over the height of the existing buildings. Moreover, this tower will be at only about 25 meters distance from the main facade of the cathedral. No impact study on the OUV has been done. The third one, the project of the demolition and reconstruction of the Pont des Trous Watergate. In line with the building permit of July the 6th, 2019, the demolition will start on the 2nd of August. The Pont des Trous is one of the rare examples of medieval watergate built in the 13th century. No survey, no documentation has been prepared for the restoration and rebuilding. The bridge is national monument. No study on the negative impacts on the OUV has been prepared. We are extremely alarmed about the impending loss of our world heritage in front of our eyes. We call upon the committee as a matter of emergency to take immediate steps to ascertain the information provided, and in case of confirmation, to take whatever steps necessary to prevent the loss of this World Heritage property. Thank you for your attention, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May Mrs. Rossler make some comment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to inform the World Heritage Committee that this was not one of the items on our agenda. As you know, we had 166 reports on the state of conservation, and this is not one. And we deal with these matters as per our usual procedures. If we get any information from NGOs, we process it according to the operational guidelines. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, can we proceed and to return back to the item 7.2 of our agenda for the approval of these documents? Kuwait wanted something to say. Please, you're welcome.
We would like to add a comment to the discussion. Kuwait recognizes the importance of developing management plans for the World Heritage Sites that are closely integrated with the city development plans and master plans. Having observed cases during the review of state of conservation reports and previous discussions at the committee where such integration with sustainable development components lacks synergy, we recognize the need for the dissemination of a better informed approach to this reoccurring issue. Kuwait has been committed to the historic urban landscape approach since 2014, having implemented several capacity building activities and a regional conference on the urban modernities in the Arab region, and more recently in integrating the HUL approach in Kuwait 2040 National Master Plan as a result of a collaboration between Kuwait Municipality and the National Council for Culture and Arts. Kuwait would like to support activities in close cooperation with the World Heritage Center towards the implementation of the 2011 recommendations on the historic urban landscape, in particular in the Arab states region, over the next 3 years, and we look forward to sharing the outcome of these activities with other regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take it for the note. So, can we proceed? There is no objections against the newly proposed additions, drafts. So, I declare the document 43.7.2 approved. Thank you very much. Now we move to document 7.3. There are some amendments. Rapporteur, please give us information about that.
Thank you. Again, we've received several amendments for this portion of the decision. The first paragraphs, as you can see, are unamended. The first proposal is for a new paragraph 7 proposed by Azerbaijan. Notes with appreciation the International Union of Architects Forum on Mass Tourism in Historic Cities, which was held in Baku, Azerbaijan on 7 to 9 June 2019, and welcomes the proposal of the UIA to prepare in close cooperation with the World Heritage Centre and the advisory bodies the guidelines for architectural competitions in and around World Heritage urban properties that will recognise their outstanding universal value. A new paragraph 8 proposed by the Republic of Tanzania welcomes the offer of the Government of Japan to host an international experts meeting in January 2020 to provide further guidelines for the integration of the assessment of the impacts for interventions in the wider processes of urban management by applying, the 2001 Historic Urban Landscape Recommendation is probably better described as by the recommendation of the, which is the correct name, Historic Urban Landscape, to address the challenges of increased urbanisation in close cooperation with the World Heritage Centre, as well as ICOMOS and other advisory bodies. New paragraph 9, proposed by St Kitts and Nevis, calls on UNESCO Secretariat to develop measures to address the inherently limited nature of institutional capacity in SIDS, acting as an impediment in identifying, inventorying and proposing potential heritage sites of historical, natural and cultural nature for listing. In the tourism section, again we have a new paragraph proposed by St Kitts and Nevis, calls on UNESCO Secretariat to recognise opportunities for forging synergies between core horizontal UNESCO activities that could be harnessed to strengthen heritage sites, youth, heritage tourism training, sustainable heritage tourism and biodiversity, and relate it directly to SIDS or SIDS. And then if we continue, that's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Roslert, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Just one brief comment on the addition. I think it comes from Azerbaijan under item 7, if I'm not mistaken. The UNESCO gave patronage for this meeting, but so far we have not received the results of the meeting. We are very happy to work together, but we have actually not received the results of this meeting. I just want to have this on the record. Thank you.
Relay, please.
Just to note in paragraph 8 then, the wording under the historic urban landscape should be the 2011 recommendation on the historic urban landscape is the proper name of the recommendation.
Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following the statement made by the Director of the World Heritage Center, we would also like to know if it's possible to get the viewpoint of the advisory bodies on this sort of cooperation, as again, we are not much aware of the outcomes of that meeting referred to. Thank you.
Maybe ICOMOS or ICOMOS, can you give your opinion about this matter?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to paragraph 8 and the offer by the government of Japan to host an international expert meeting, this is just to say that...
Item 7, please. The question was connected to the amendment done by Azerbaijan concerning mass tourism in historical sites conference forum. And the question was whether how we are, justifying the cooperation of such kind.
Thank you. Apologies, Chair. We certainly welcome the recommendation put forward under item 7. We think this could be very valuable in providing guidelines for architectural competitions in relation to outstanding universal value.
Thank you. Can we ask Azerbaijan for the results of this conference, some documents or whatever?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. So the few days ago, we heard a statement by International Union of Architects proposing to prepare such guidelines for architectural competition. And here in our proposal, we just welcome this proposal. And of course, it's mentioned that it's done in close cooperation with the center and the advisory body. That's clear. And having heard from ICOMOS, I think they are also in favor of welcoming of such proposal. And just to mention that this issue was also widely discussed in the forum, which is mentioned in the first part of this paragraph. And regarding the command of director of center, I think we can assist in communication between the International Union of Architects and the center so that we can convey the outcomes of this forum as soon as possible to the World Heritage Center. Thank you very much.
Tanzania, please.
Chair, as we know, we are now in the center of urban development in the world. And we've seen for the last 4 days, most issues were related to state of conservation or nomination. They were related with urban issues. Most of recommendations in UNESCO were related to urban issues. For that reason, my delegation welcomed this proposal from the government of Japan to organize these international experts to come up with a recommendation which will help state parties how to implement their conservation and protection issues. So that we propose and we hope the committee will approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment about paragraph 8, which I would like to thank the Republic of Tanzania for suggesting this paragraph. Just reading the end, it says, in close cooperation with the World Heritage Center as well as ICOMOS and other advisory bodies, I think it would be maybe more appropriate to just say in cooperation with the advisory bodies. I don't really understand why ICOMOS is the only one named when I'm sure that the other two advisory bodies will also need to work on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Some other opinion? So we change the wording there. So delete it, yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could just read what I understand that to be. So that would
Yes,
be,
you're welcome.
Thank you. In close cooperation with the World Heritage Centre and the advisory bodies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No other comments. I don't see any. So can we proceed to the approval of the document 7.3 with the amendments? Thank you very much. It's approved. Now we move to the item 6. Follow-up to the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and the progress report on the World Heritage-related Category 2 centers. The relevant working document is document 6. Considering their close links, these two reports are presented together within the same document. Dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor first to the representative of ICROM for what concerns the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. Please, the floor is yours. Mr. King, yes. You're welcome. Welcome, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and please accept my apologies. We finished this item quicker than I thought, and because of my situation, it's harder for me to move forward, but I apologize for the time. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to take the floor on this item 6. As you all know, this item deals with the follow-up to the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and also a progress report on the World Heritage related Category 2 centers. Next slide, please. Just to recall, the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy was approved in 2011 at the 35th session of the World Heritage Committee, and it covered it replaced a previous existing World Heritage Training Strategy, and in that document, the document identified a series of key issues that had not been treated in the past, such as urban conservation, impact assessment, areas such as that. It also recognized a larger group of target audiences for capacity building, not just professionals as had been in the past, but also institutions and also communities and networks. And the third important thing that the capacity building strategy did was it recognized the need for much stronger links between conservation of natural heritage and conservation of cultural heritage. The strategy was designed to have activities at the international level, at the regional level, and also for the first time it recommended activities at the national level. At the international level, we have been working primarily on a program called World Heritage Leadership. Next slide, please. which is a program of ICROM and IUCN, working with the support of the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment, but also working very closely with the UNESCO World Heritage Center and with ICOMOS. I'm also happy to say that in the last year or so, we've had support also from the government of Switzerland, and we are starting a new cooperation now with the government of Korea. World Heritage Leadership has essentially 5 different modules which we are working on. The first includes effective management of nature and culture, and in particular in relation to people and communities. The second is improving issues related to resilience, always in relation to culture and nature. The third module is on impact assessment, and again, looking at culture and nature links. And we are also trying to develop a series of networks of learning sites, and also we call it a leadership network of professionals and other people involved in World Heritage management. Next slide, please. Over the past year, the main activity, if I can say that, was a regional course in Africa on people, culture, and nature, which took place last year in August 2018 at the Victoria Falls World Heritage Property in Zambia. Actually, the property is a cross-border site with Zambia and Zimbabwe, and we had 20 participants from 18 countries at that course. Next slide, please. But I think the much more important thing that we're working on at this point in time is an online platform of heritage management resources. And this is something that we're in the process of working on. It will still take us some time to develop it and actually get it up and running. But the idea is to have a place online where heritage managers, where other people involved in the management of sites in one way or another can come and look and find resource materials in relation to management of World Heritage sites, in relation to management effectiveness for World Heritage sites, in relation to disaster risk management and climate change, and in relation to impact assessment. This work is currently ongoing, and we foresee that it will probably be up and running within, I would say, probably within the next year or so. Next slide, please. To break that down a little bit more, one of the things that we're really trying to focus on is management effectiveness. And a tool was created for natural heritage called Enhancing Our Heritage. And there was a toolkit that was developed and is published within the World Heritage Paper Series. The issue with that, however, was that it was really only tailored toward natural heritage sites. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is we've been trying to look at that in its relationship to implementation on cultural heritage sites. So we've had a number of activities, again, thanks to the Swiss government, for example. We've had a testing on cultural heritage sites, and that testing goes on. I think the most recent one was actually in Chile, if I'm not mistaken. And we're trying to sort of continue to develop this tool and adapt this tool to ensure that it takes into account or is useful, let's say, at both natural sites and at cultural sites. Next slide. In the area of resilience, we are in the process of doing a revision of the manual on managing disaster risks. This was the first World Heritage Resource Manual that was completed probably about 10 years ago or so, I guess. And in that period, there's many new issues that have come up that have called for the need to do a revision of that manual. And we're also adding, again, climate change. And I was very interested to hear Australia's intervention previously. I think it's something that we can maybe discuss a little bit more. This year we did a scoping study looking at literature on climate change and impact on heritage. And this is something that we very much want to move forward with within World Heritage leadership. Next slide, please. And finally, on the area of impact assessment, and I have to say, listening to the State of Conservation reports over the course of this week, this issue of impact assessment and environmental impact assessment, heritage impact assessment, strategic environmental assessment, when do we need them, when are they appropriate? I think there's a need for us to really try to look at this in an integrated manner, to be able to look at cultural heritage and natural heritage, and specifically outstanding universal value. So we are trying to work very closely with partners on this. We've carried out some courses. A couple of these pictures are from a course that we did on heritage impact assessment in collaboration with WITRAP, the Category 2 Center in Shanghai. But the other important thing that I want to mention here is you see we have the logo of IAIA, that's the International Association of Impact Assessment. And one of the things that we're trying to do is reach out to them because they are not heritage professionals specifically. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to move outside of our realm of just talking to ourselves. And these are impact assessment professionals who maybe don't know about how to assess outstanding universal value. And so by reaching out to them and working closely with them, we can disseminate this these methodologies for looking at World Heritage and impacts on OUV to a wider range of professionals. Next slide, please. The final thing in terms of World Heritage leadership that I would like to mention, and this has been mentioned already several times during this meeting, is the Site Managers Forums. Within World Heritage leadership, we've taken on a role working with the World Heritage Center and the host country, and we have carried out now 3 Site Managers Forums, and I'd actually like to take the opportunity to express my really extreme gratitude to Azerbaijan for working with us on the implementation of the Site Managers Forum this year. This is a forum which brings together, it's not just the professionals as individuals, but again, this is the site managers are representing their sites and their institutions. So this is really a way to bring together the networking also at an institutional level. And I'm happy to say that of the results of the 3 forums, the network is actually quite strong and getting stronger, and the site managers are communicating with each other and helping each other when they have problems and helping them to find solutions. So I think that's also something very positive. Next slide, please. And finally, this is just a slide to show you some of the organizations and places and people that have been involved in the program over the last few years. So again, our network is increasingly growing. Next slide, please. In addition to the activities that we're doing at the international level, there are also a number of activities at the regional level which are being carried out. And these activities are being carried out by the World Heritage Center, for one, and you can find information on those not only in Document 6, but also in 5A, which is their report to the committee, but also by the Category 2 centers in the various regions. And I think it's important to point out that there are a variety of partners in capacity building at regional and national levels that are taking part in the implementation of the strategy. I won't read these slides for you, obviously, and you can also find more information in Document 6. But just to point out, so in Asia and the Pacific, for example, they're tackling a number of key issues such as nomination dossiers, sustainable management, historic urban landscapes, and risk reduction strategies. Next slide, please. In Latin America, the one that I really wanted to point out here was a national seminar for site managers that took place in Argentina. And I think that's also something very important. I'll come back to that at the end, but it's important at the national level for countries to begin to think about capacity building for their professionals. Next slide, please. In Europe and North America, a number of activities, again, particularly on heritage impact assessment. That is something that's obviously of great importance. But the other one that I would want to point out is workshops addressing threats specifically posed by renewable energy, and particularly wind farms. I mean, I think we usually consider renewable energy as a positive aspect for conservation of at least our natural resources. But the question becomes how does that infrastructure actually affect outstanding universal value? And I think that's something that we have to look at more closely. Next slide, please. In Africa, primarily with the cooperation of the Africa World Heritage Fund, there have been, again, a number of activities, nomination courses, activities on tentative lists, and sustainable development. Next slide. And in the Arab States region, again, impact assessment, as you can see, this is something that is important really in all regions of the world, but also activities related to urban heritage, historic urban landscapes, and the development of tentative lists. And again, this is in collaboration with the ARCWH, the Category 2 Center in Bahrain, and also ICRAM's regional center in Sharjah. Next slide, please. In addition to these regional activities, there are also a series of activities you'll find in document 6, which are sort of other capacity building activities. Next slide. And here you'll see just a list of some of those activities that have taken place. And again, I won't take the time to read through them specifically, but this just gives you a range of the kinds of activities, capacity building activities that are taking place. In some cases, at a thematic level. So, for example, the first one on this list is an issue of Buddhist heritage routes and sustainable tourism on these heritage routes. I think that's something actually quite interesting. Next slide. And then I would also like to point out, for example, the thematic network of marine managers, which is part of the World Heritage Center's marine program, which I think is actually something that has been very successful over time. To conclude this part of the presentation, before I give the floor back to the director of the World Heritage Center to talk about the Category 2 centers, I just want to bring out a couple of points. I think one of the things, what I've done is I've outlined a series of activities at the international level and at the regional level. But I think what we're missing up to this point is a robust mechanism for capturing capacity building activities wherever they occur and by whomever they occur that benefit World Heritage. So one of the things that ICRAM would like to do for the future is we would like to develop a sort of stronger system of collecting information and being able to analyze that information in a more synthetic way, to be able to give to you, the committee members, so that you can actually get a real sense of not just the individual activities that have been going on, but sort of how they sort of fit together to create a stronger, let's say a stronger capacity building around the world. And the second point that I would want to make also is, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the capacity building strategy was meant to look at things at the international level, at the regional level, and at the national level. I've presented to you activities at the international level and at the regional level, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure how many states parties are actually developing capacity building activities or capacity building strategies, I would say, at the national level. And I think that's something that we have to encourage much more, is to have individual countries really assess what their needs are for capacity building and who is in the country to be able to supply capacity building to meet those needs and to develop those kinds of strategies. So that's something that ICRAM and our other capacity building partners, also the Category 2 centers, would I think be very willing to work with individual states parties if they wish to develop capacity building strategies at the national level. So that's also something I think that we need to strengthen in the coming years. So with that, I would like to thank you all for listening to me on this issue of capacity building, and I would like to give the floor back to the director of the World Heritage Center, who will, I believe, report on Category 2 centers and their progress over the last year. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. Now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Rosslert, who will present to us the second part of this document, which is concerned the progress report on the World Heritage-related Category 2 centers. Please, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So very briefly, I would like to provide a report on the Category 2 centers. As you know, we have currently a total of 9 Category 2 centers related to World Heritage, and agreements have been signed with 7 centers, which are listed in a document in front of you. And Mr. Chair, I would also like to recognize that a number of directors of these Category 2 centers joined us here at this session. Agreements have not been signed for 2 centers, which is the International Center for Rock Art and the World Heritage Convention in Spain, which was approved by UNESCO's General Conference in 2011, and the Regional Center for Human Evolution, Adaptations and Dispersals in Southeast Asia in Indonesia, which was approved by UNESCO's General Conference in 2017. A new proposal for a Category 2 center related to World Heritage, the International Center for the Interpretation and Presentation of World Heritage Sites, was submitted by the Republic of Korea in December 2018, and a feasibility study is currently underway. The outcomes of the study are scheduled to be presented to the 207th session of the Executive Board of UNESCO in October 2019, and of course subsequent review by the General Conference. This would be the first Category 2 center dedicated to interpretation topics. Next slide. The agreement for the Category 2 Center for the World Natural Heritage Management and Training for Asia and the Pacific region at the Wildlife Institute at Dehradun in India officially entered into force on 17 October 2018. And throughout the year, the center has made efforts to strengthen its regional outreach by cooperating with the Ecosystem Services Partnership Asia Regional Office. On 1st July this year, the center's residential master's degree course in heritage conservation and management accepted the first students' intake. The final approval of the Regional World Heritage Institute in Zacatecas in Mexico is expected for the end of the year 2019, whereas the biannual work plan for the Regional Center Management Training Center, the Lucio Costa in Brazil, was adopted in mid-2018. In 2019, the ARC-WHC announced the culmination of its regional training program on the implementation of the Enhancing Our Heritage Toolkit, and this was already covered by Mr. Joe King. Now we had, I think there's another slide, the 7th annual meeting of our UNESCO World Heritage related Category 2 centers and institutes. It took place in Manama in Bahrain between 22nd, 23rd of April. We had Category 2 centers and ICROM and the World Heritage Center, and a number of heritage professionals from the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities, which attended the meeting in order to discuss topics related to the mandates of regional centers and their work. This year's meeting looked specifically on the periodic reporting cycle, in which Category 2 centers have a major role, and I should say an increasing role to play, following the experience of ARC-WH in the Arab region, and the potential role of Category 2 centers in this regard. And I would like to mention specifically our African World Heritage Fund, which is already much involved in the periodic reporting preparations for the African region. The centers also looked at the resource mobilization and communication strategy, which was Decision 42-COM14, which requested us to look with other stakeholders into resource mobilization. The need to develop synergies with other normative instruments and programs in order to ensure a better implementation of the Convention, especially in the context of urban heritage, was also highlighted, and the meeting dedicated a whole session to discuss the approach of the 2011 Historic Urban Landscape Recommendation and the role that Category 2 centers can play in this regard. And with this, I give the floor back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any comments or observations concerned with this subject?
Angola.
Angola, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous aimerions, avant d'entrer dans le vif du sujet, féliciter les centres du patrimoine mondial et les organes consultatifs, notamment l'ICROM, pour l'élaboration et la présentation de cet important rapport d'avancement sur la mise en œuvre de la stratégie du patrimoine mondial pour le renforcement de capacités et les activités des centres de catégorie 2 associés au patrimoine mondial. Toutefois, nous aimerions faire quelques remarques concernant le contenu de ce rapport. Pour une question de suivi et d'évaluation des résultats, nous souhaiterions que le rapport soit présenté sous forme de rapports basés, disons, des approches basées sur des résultats et des performances. Les rapports devraient ressortir clairement comment les résultats produits sur le terrain en renforçant les capacités, impacte la mise en œuvre de la stratégie globale pour une liste du patrimoine mondial représentative, équilibrée et crédible, parce que en analysant le nombre d'activités de renforcement de capacité réalisées au niveau du continent africain, par exemple, elle devrait en principe améliorer la représentation de l'Afrique sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Mais malheureusement, l'Afrique continue à être sous-représentée. Une deuxième remarque est que les activités menées par les centres de catégorie 2 dans toutes les régions du monde montrent clairement qu'il y a beaucoup d'approches et d'expertises intéressantes qui se développent et qui ont besoin d'être partagées. À cet effet, nous encourageons les centres de catégorie 2 de commencer à développer des programmes communs de renforcement de capacité en collaboration avec les centres du patrimoine mondial, les organes consultatifs et les États parties intéressés, tels que les Fonds pour le patrimoine mondial africain et les WIFTRAP souhaitent le faire dans le cadre de la coopération Afrique, UNESCO, Chine. Et sur la base de nos remarques, nous avons proposé, Monsieur le Président, quelques amendements au projet de décision. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Bosnia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Bosnia and Herzegovina would like to thank the Secretariat and ICROM for the preparation of the progress report. The document states, and there is a good evidence, that numerous capacity building activities related to the development of conservation and management practices for culture and nature, to development of regional capacity building strategies, and to Category 2 centers have been undertaken. However, we believe that report, in addition to activities outlined, should also contain an analytical part. Given that capacity building strategy was adopted in 2011, we believe it's time to compare the list of activities with the 9 goals and 47 actions defined in the decision 35.9b. In this way, states parties would be given an opportunity to easily monitor which goals are in good progress and which are lagging behind. Such information would enable better informed decision-making process in the capacity building as strategic objective of the Convention. In this regard, we suggest that the next report on achieving a capacity building strategy contains an analysis in relation to defined goals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now we have Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Zimbabwe delegation would like to commend the World Heritage Center for the work that it is doing in effort to capacitate states parties in the area of World Heritage. We also commend the 3 advisory bodies for the crucial roles that they are playing in capacitating states parties through training programs such as the ICROM's World Heritage Leadership. We are encouraged, Mr. Chairman, that the last edition of the World Heritage Program was held in Africa at the Transboundary World Heritage Property of Mosia Tunya, Victoria Falls, on the Zambian side, and we are hopeful that this initiative will bring positive developments in the way in which World Heritage is managed on the African continent. We also want to acknowledge the immense role that the African World Heritage Fund is playing in the capacitating of states parties and site managers on the African continent. We are appreciative of the cordial working relationship that the African World Heritage Fund has with the World Heritage Center and advisory bodies, which has seen successful initiatives such as the 2-week African Regional Course on People, Nature and Culture, conducted in August 2018. Mr. Chair, we would like to acknowledge the efforts of the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies together with the host country of the 22nd session of the World Heritage Committee in the organization of the 2018 Site Managers Forum, which is an important capacity building initiative for site managers. We, however, request the center, if possible, to provide additional funding to enable more site managers from the African region to participate in the Site Managers Forum in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanzania, please.
Chair, Tanzania is also commend the World Heritage Center, Advisory Body, and Category Center for their efforts to implement the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. We are of the firm belief that it will be difficult to achieve our objective of 5C without capacity. Mobilization of experts, local government, and community all depend on our capacity to engage the stakeholder and community. My delegation acknowledges the effort which has been done, particularly in Africa, on this subject. We also know that there has been extra budgetary effort to diversify and support the strategy. We thank those countries which have supported those programs. Chair, my delegation think that it's the time to evaluate our strategy to know if we have been doing a best practice to implement our strategy. As such, my delegation recommend to the committee members to accept the proposal to request the ICROMs in cooperation with World Heritage Center and other advisory body to carry a result-based evaluation on how to implement the strategy for reinforcement of our capacity. Chair, in line of the above, Tanzania supports the proposal of distinguished delegate of Angola and propose an amendment to the draft decision to underline our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guatemala, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Queremos agradecer el informe sobre la implementación de la Estrategia Global para el Fortalecimiento de Capacidades en el Patrimonio Mundial. Valoramos positivamente la gran cantidad de actividades, las que sin duda contribuyen a mejorar las posibilidades de gestión, protección y difusión de los sitios que figuran en la lista. Esperamos que en los próximos años y décadas se vean reflejados los resultados de este esfuerzo con la consolidación de una lista creíble y representativa a través de la incorporación de nuevos sitios que provengan de nominaciones preparadas en regiones, temáticas y tipologías de propiedades que no se encuentran debidamente representadas actualmente. Agradecemos el liderazgo del Estado parte de México en nuestra región y, como se indica en el informe, un plan de acción se ha formulado, se tienen previstas importantes actividades relacionadas con la identificación de sitios para las listas indicativas en los estados partes de la subregión, del proceso de nominación, la gestión de riesgos y el fortalecimiento de sistemas de manejo. Valoramos y agradecemos los esfuerzos realizados en distintas instancias para el fortalecimiento global de las capacidades en relación a la protección del patrimonio mundial y, sin lugar a dudas, será necesario también hacer un análisis estratégico para identificar claramente las regiones y priorizar los esfuerzos de apoyo que nos conducirían a equilibrar la lista del patrimonio mundial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Brazil, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to commend UNESCO for organizing this important seminar here relating to the activities of Category 2 institutes and centers. I would like to highlight the role of the Centro Lúcio Costa, Category 2 Center of UNESCO, especially in the translation of UNESCO guidelines to the Portuguese language that are made available also to all the English-speaking countries in Africa. The center is now also working in the translation of the UNESCO document, Tourism and World Heritage, with the same spirit of make this information available for Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa and also to Timor. The Lucio Costa Center is also very active in other activities of capacity building. I would like to mention at this point that capacity building courses being organized in Cabo Verde in March next year, conducted entirely by the Lucio Costa Center. Those activities are also very important in Brazil, including through scholarships that are granted by our National Institute of World Heritage. And another aspect that I would like to bring to your attention is the fact that our National Institute for Cultural and Artistic Heritage is now promoting an MBA on all aspects of heritage conservation and management, giving also scholarships to not only to Brazilian students from universities all over the country, but also to other countries. I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Burkina Faso, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Burkina Faso félicite le Centre du patrimoine mondial et les organisations consultatives pour le rapport portant sur le suivi de la stratégie du patrimoine mondial pour le renforcement des capacités et le rapport d'avancement sur les centres de catégorie 2 associés au patrimoine mondial. Nous reconnaissons et remercions les centres de catégorie 2 en collaboration avec les organisations consultatives pour les efforts fournis dans le cadre du renforcement des capacités par la tenue d'ateliers qui visent à outiller les États parties pour la préparation des dossiers d'inscription sur des bases solides. Durant les 3 dernières années, plusieurs ateliers et forats ont été organisés à l'endroit des jeunes et des gestionnaires des sites de patrimoine mondial sur le patrimoine mondial en relation avec la nature et la culture, portant sur les aspects du changement climatique et les impacts du développement. C'est le cas pour le module intitulé « Gestion efficace, nature, culture et communauté » qui est un cours régional africain organisé en août 2018 sur le site du patrimoine mondial au site Victoria en collaboration avec le Fonds pour le patrimoine mondial africain et la Commission de conservation du patrimoine mondial de Zambie. La réussite de ces activités demande la participation et la collaboration des États parties et, comme l'a relevé l'ICOMOS, les pays devraient élaborer des stratégies nationales dans ce cadre. En outre, il serait indiqué de mettre en place un système de recueil d'informations plus solide sur le renforcement des capacités ainsi que l'analyse de l'impact des activités à l'entête des objectifs. Pour ce faire, notre pays soutient l'amendement qui a été soumis par l'Angola. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. China, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, we wish to commend the World Heritage Center for its effort in capacity building. We also wish to continue in June, in last June, that we had a cooperation already with the World Heritage Center and the Africa Group in connection with Priority Africa to organize a capacity building in relation to World Heritage. China wishes to continue this kind of efforts, perhaps in terms of training programs being established in the near future. We will be in close discussion with Africa Group again and the World Heritage Center, and we have the support of our National Administration of Heritage
cultural heritage, and they are willing to participate, and perhaps we could establish some detailed training arrangement in this connection. And of course, as like I mentioned in the beginning of our session, that China also welcomes other countries to join this enormously important effort. We support the amendment by Angola. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I ask Mr. King to give us some comments? Oh, sorry. Who is? Center. Sorry, Mr. King, but we have someone speaker. This is the Center for Zacatecas from Mexico.
Gracias, señor presidente, por concederme el uso de la voz. Siendo la primera intervención del Instituto Regional del Patrimonio Mundial en Zacatecas, agradezco y felicito a la República de Azerbaiyán por el éxito de esta 43ª sesión del Comité del Patrimonio Mundial, que ya ha dado tantos y tan excelentes resultados. Honorables participantes de esta reunión, comparto con ustedes que el pasado mes de junio el Consejo de Administración del Instituto aprobó el programa de trabajo elaborado a partir del Plan de Acción para el Patrimonio Mundial en México y América Central 2018-2023, el PAMAC. Este programa fue aprobado por los estados participantes y está centrado en cumplir con la estrategia de fortalecimiento de capacidades para apoyar los retos de la subregión en la implementación de la Convención. Entre otras actividades, este año se llevarán a cabo 2 importantes talleres para la región y avanzaremos próximamente hacia una programación de actividades para el 2020. Estamos trabajando en contacto con las autoridades encargadas del patrimonio mundial en cada país para conocer sus retos y proyectos en la conservación y uso sostenible. Tanto de manera presencial como con el uso de las nuevas tecnologías, será posible incidir en una apropiación social del patrimonio mundial que se traduzca en identidad, memoria y desarrollo de las comunidades de la región. Hago un reconocimiento al valioso apoyo que en todo momento el Centro del Patrimonio Mundial ha brindado al Instituto para llegar a esta etapa. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My delegation thanks the Secretariat for this report and ICROM for the presentation. It's indeed one of the most important tasks that the Center and the advisory bodies should, and of course with the cooperation with the state parties, which should do. And I believe that the capacity building is another contribution to the global strategy, which will make the list more balanced and more credible. In that sense, we fully support the activities of the Secretariat and as well as the state parties, and the contributions of the state parts are more than commendable. But we believe that we need to redouble our efforts and to invest more in the capacity building and in the least developed countries, and especially in Africa. Here I would like to mention that there are several ways how we can see this process. The first is the nomination, the assist and capacity building in the nomination process, as we are observing that there is a very limited number of sites from Africa are presenting their nominations, their sites. And second is the capacity building for site managers in the Africa that are under the threat or in the list of endangered. And I would like to quote the representative of ICROM on the importance of the World Heritage Site Managers Forum. So it is already third experience, and the practice that we have started in Krakow continued in Bahrain, and now in Azerbaijan. We are very happy and honored to organize the third edition of this Site Managers Forum. And listening the site managers and also getting the feedback from this meeting, we can see that it is one of the, I would say, strongest ways to promote networking among the site managers, but also to learn from each other and to increase their capacities. And we are very happy that among those 70 site managers, my country funded a considerable number of the site managers from Africa, and we are very proud of this. Another cooperation that we believe may be useful is to work with the African World Heritage Fund. This is another Pan-African organization which helps countries in Africa to upgrade their capacities and to help them in all the processes, starting from the nominations and also the capacity buildings for the site managers. And I joined the Chinese ambassador in calling the members, state parties, to engage on a bilateral level also with the African countries, and Azerbaijan is committed to do this also in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bahrain now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to express our gratitude and thanks to both ICROM, Mr. Jo King, and Dr. Losler from the World Heritage Center for their support. On behalf of Bahrain and the Arab Regional Center hosted by Bahrain, we value their input, their support, and other advisory bodies like ICOMOS and IUCN in following up all the mandate that we have to implement, including the capacity building. I would like to express our support to the amendment from Angola and Tanzania regarding the impact assessment. The Arab Regional Center has plans to start from next year to carry out impact assessment in both training for natural and for cultural heritage center components. We have so far, since 2012, involved about 1,000 participants from various Arab countries in the region in our training programs, and there are many. I don't want to get into the details of that. It is time for us now to take stock of what has been achieved and what happened and what was the impact on the various countries and various institutions. We will need the support from the Arab unit, which is always available within the World Heritage Center, and from our partners, the advisory bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now may I ask Mr. King to give us some reports?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And let me first thank all of the members of the committee who intervened. It makes me very happy when there's a discussion on capacity building, bringing out various key aspects. I think this is, I mean, I speak from ICROM, and you know that ICROM is capacity building, but I think this is an important part of how we can ensure that our sites not only get on the World Heritage List, but stay in a good state of conservation for, you know, so that we can pass them down to our, to the next generation. In regard to perhaps the biggest issue that's been discussed by a number of states parties, I'll mention Angola, Bosnia, Tanzania, but also many others who've supported it. I would say that we welcome very much the idea of an evaluation of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. We are going on 8 years now, and I think it makes a lot of sense for us to be able to take a step back, take stock, figure out what we've actually been able to do and what we have not been able to accomplish yet. And I think that that's actually something that would be welcomed very much by, certainly by ICROM, I would suspect by the World Heritage Center and by the other advisory bodies. My hope would be that would lead then to a revision of the strategy, because obviously things have changed over the last 8 years. So I'm assuming that such an evaluation would be the first step to the idea of a revised capacity building strategy that we could present to the World Heritage Committee at a future session. And I note that in the amendment it actually mentions that. The third thing that I will mention that I also am happy to see in the amendment, but it's important for me to at least flag this to you all, is that clearly there is actually no budget for carrying out this evaluation. As you know, the pressure on the World Heritage Fund is what it is, and there was no consideration of this when the budgets were actually made for 2020 and 2021. So I think it will be very important for us to ask you members of the committee and you states parties in a larger sense, if there's a possibility for us to be able to get some extra budgetary funds to be able to fund both, and I would mention again, both the evaluation of the current strategy, but also the development of the revised strategy for the future. So I think that's something that I would like to point out. In regard to some of the smaller issues, we had interventions from China and Bahrain and the Zacatecas Center, and they are indeed, in all cases, important partners in capacity building through their Category 2 centers. WITRAP has been one of the crucial Asian partners in capacity building over this period of time. The Bahrain Center absolutely has been doing a fantastic job, and we're very pleased to be partnering with them and pleased to be continuing and strengthening, I would say, our partnership as time is going on. And also with the Zacatecas Center, we have carried out a course there and have been involved in some of the planning of activities in the Zacatecas Center. Just quickly in regard to Zimbabwe's intervention, and I did mention the course that took place on the Zambia side of Victoria Falls, but that doesn't mean that Zimbabwe was not involved in it. We had professionals from Zimbabwe who were a part of that, and we thank them. We thank Zimbabwe very much for that, and look forward to continuing to work with them. Two other quick points: Brazil mentioned specifically Portuguese language, and I think that is something that's very important and something that we need to look at. But in fact, I would like to put that in a larger framework. It's not just the need to have more translations in Portuguese, but it's the need to have more translations in many, many different local languages. The truth of the matter is, when you get down to the site level, and when you're talking about site managers, very often it's the only effective way to be able to manage a site is using local languages, and that may be Portuguese in some places. It may be, it may be other languages. So those translations are much appreciated from Brazil. But I would really also like to encourage all states parties to actually think about translating resource materials into local languages so that they're useful for the people on the ground, for communities, for site managers, et cetera. And finally, on the issue of Africa, as many of you know, ICROM has certainly been very much involved in capacity building in Africa over the last 20 some odd years. We are actually in the process with the Africa World Heritage Fund of developing a new program for capacity building in Africa, not just touching on World Heritage, but actually looking at World Heritage and beyond, let's say, and focusing that specifically on the issue of youth and how to bring youth into the conservation process, into the heritage process. We think that the youth are the next generation, and so we need to be focusing now on bringing the young generation into heritage conservation and heritage protection in Africa, not just sub-Saharan Africa, but in Africa. And we would be actually very happy to talk with Azerbaijan and with China and with other interested states parties to try to carry that program forward as we move forward. So thank you all very much for your actually very rich and very useful comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Rosler, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would also like to thank for the very rich debate on this extremely important issue, which you have discussed throughout the World Heritage Committee session here. A couple of points. Of course, we need to have funds available for such an evaluation. I also noted very clearly from Angola that we need to present a result-based report and to see actually the impacts of capacity building on the ground. I also would like to say to Bosnia, very important point you raised about the SDGs. And what we try to do is streamlining the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy throughout all processes, including capacity building. And we had actually yesterday in the operational guidelines group a discussion specifically on the changes to capacity building to align it with the SDGs. Also very important, mentioned by several of you, the funding for site managers, and the ambassador of Azerbaijan clearly pointed out that this is very crucial because the site managers forum became in itself a capacity building exercise, and I think this is very much welcome. Funding is limited. We will of course talk to China, and I'm looking at the ambassador of China for the next forum. But there's also a very easy thing to do if states parties would take site managers on their delegations and maybe helping them to finance a ticket to come to the next World Heritage Committee session. That would be a way out. And finally, I think what is very much welcome is that we are now moving into a phase where there are linkages between the different Category 2 centers, and China mentions now the new MAU with the African World Heritage Fund and WITRAP. So this is also a way forward. So thank you very much for all the points raised.
Thank you very much. We have an amendment to the draft decision. Please, Rapporteur. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As flagged, we have an amendment from Angola and the United Republic of Tanzania. Adds a new paragraph 4. Requests ICROM, in cooperation with the World Heritage Centre, IUCN and ICOMOS, to carry out a results-based evaluation of the implementation of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy, consulting Category 2 centres and other capacity building partners, for examination by the committee at its 45th session in 2021. Also a new paragraph 5. Further requests ICROM, in cooperation with the World Heritage Centre, IUCN, ICOMOS, the Category 2 centres and other capacity building partners, based on the above-mentioned evaluation, to develop a revision of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 46th session in 2022. New paragraph 6. Invites states parties to contribute extra budgetary resources for the evaluation of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and its revision. And then we have one additional paragraph new paragraph, 11. Encourages the advisory bodies and the Category 2 centres to establish joint regional capacity building programs which facilitate and promote knowledge and experience exchanges among professionals, institutions and other stakeholders. And there's also amendment to the final paragraph. Requests the World Heritage Centre and ICROM to submit a progress report on the implementation of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy by improving the quality of its content by bringing up concrete outcomes and the activities of the Category 2 centres related to World Heritage for examination by the committee at its 44th session in 2020. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that we don't have any comments and object. Uganda, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We have a slight problem, a small problem with minor, I should call it minor, problem with number 5, which talks about, where it talks about developing a revision of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. I think we could improve the language and probably say to review the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. The justification for proposing this is that we already have a strategy in place which should be reviewed, but to say to develop a revision of that strategy maybe connotes that you do not have the strategy in place.
Thank you. should we proceed?
Yes, I can just read that for you. Further requests ICROM, in cooperation with the World Heritage Centre, IUCN, ICOMOS, the Category 2 centres and other capacity building partners, based on the above-mentioned evaluation, to review the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 46th session in 2022.
Thank you very much. So now can we adopt this version? No other... Bosnia, please.
Thank you, Chair. After hearing all these comments in the room, I would like to ask Rapporteur to see the new Para 12. I think, according to comments, it would make more sense to request World Heritage Centre and ICRON to submit in-depth report and not progress report.
Thank you. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. If we can go back up to the paragraph above that we were discussing previously. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the number. This one, just on adding to Uganda's proposed amendment, sort of review progress. Of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy for examination. And perhaps actually even progress and outcomes.
Any objections? Okay, I don't see any now at last. So we can move with the adoption with the last version. In this case, I declare the document 43.6 adopted. Thank you very much. Now we move to the document 8C, please. Update of the World Heritage List and the list of World Heritage in danger. I now invite Mr. Balzano from the World Heritage Center to present to us the updated list, taking into account the decisions taken during the examination of the state of conservation reports, as well as the nomination of the properties on the World Heritage List. You're welcome, Alessandro.
Thank you, Chair. Following the closing of item 7 and 8B, document 8C was freshly produced and distributed to you shortly before this presentation. The committee, at its 43rd session in Baku, Republic of Azerbaijan, between the 30 June and 10 July 2019, inscribed inscribed only 29 new properties on the World Heritage List, 4 of which are natural, 1 mixed, and 24 cultural, and approved the extension of 1 property already inscribed on the list. Among the newly inscribed properties, there are 7 cultural landscapes, and with this addition, we have now 1,121 properties, officially recognized as such on the World Heritage List. With this addition, we have now 112 properties recognized as cultural landscape on the World Heritage List, which represent the 10% of the list. The new overall figures of the World Heritage List are now 1,121 properties, of which 869 are cultural, 213 natural, and 39 mixed. The breakdown by region of the new properties inscribed at the World Heritage session here in Baku is 1 from Africa, 2 from the Arab region, 10 properties in the Asia-Pacific region, 15 properties from the and North American region, and 1 property from the Latin American Caribbean region. Out of the 30 successful nominations, 9, which is the 30%, are situated on the territory of current committee members. Following the debates on item 8B, 2 nominations were referred and 3 deferred. At this session, in 8 cases, the committee did not follow the advisory body's recommendation, which was presented in the draft decision, and 4 referrals became inscriptions, 2 deferrals became inscription, 1 deferral became referral, and 1 non-inscription became inscription. The committee allocated approximately 17 hours of discussion to examine the 35 nominations, and this results roughly in an average of 29 minutes for the discussion of each nomination. As a result of the decision relating to the status of conservation of properties inscribed on the World Heritage List and the decision on nomination of properties to the World Heritage List at this session, the committee decided to inscribe 1 property on the list of World Heritage in Danger, which is the island and protected areas of the Gulf of California and Mexico. And at the same time, the 2 properties were removed from the list of World Heritage in Danger: Amberstone and Santa Laura Salpeter's works in Chile, and the birthplace of Jesus, Church of the Nativity and Pilgrimage Route Bethlehem in Palestine. According to this decision, there are now 53 properties inscribed on the list of World Heritage in Danger, and draft decisions 43-8C1, 43-8C2, and 43-8C3 are on page 1, 2, and 3 of document 8C. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Rossler, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As Secretary of this convention, I also would like to add some comments in terms of consequences and workload for this committee, the advisory bodies, and the World Heritage Center. In Baku, the committee examined 166 state of conservation reports, including 54 sites inscribed on the danger list. Out of 112 reports under 7B, so our 7B SOC reports, 96 were requested from the previous session of the World Heritage Committee in 2018 in Bahrain, and 5 were requested from nomination decisions adopted at the 41st and 42nd sessions, which means the 2 previous sessions. Next year, meaning 2020, as of today, the committee will examine 161 state of conservation reports, including on the 53 sites included on the danger list. Out of the 108 7B SOC reports, which we envisage for next year, 38 were requested by you here at this session in Baku, and 70 were requested from previous sessions, mainly the 41st and 42nd session, the last 2 sessions of the World Heritage Committee. I also would like to let you know that for the 44th session, out of the 108 7B State of Conservation reports already in the pipeline, 13 were requested from nomination decisions adopted at the 41st, 42nd, and the 43rd session of the committee. This represents 10% of all the State of Conservation reports emanating from decisions on nominations to report back, as you know. We all strongly believe in this powerful legal instrument, which is the World Heritage Convention, but I would also like you to help in this critical situation, not only with assistance to the World Heritage Center and our advisory bodies, but assisting countries in need of effective management plans, visitor use plans, operative policies, and legal provisions, and to protect the heritage, and to help with this overloaded system of 1,121 sites. And I would like to thank especially those countries which just in this morning debate provided information on strategic funding they wish to give, like Australia just did this morning, or Kuwait also in terms of another project. Furthermore, you had already a debate on the status of the desired state of conservation for the removal of properties from the danger list, which is paragraph 183 and 184 of the operational guidelines. Please note that this provision exists only since 2013, as you know, when it was adopted by the World Heritage Committee, but it's really a critical tool for the site managers and the state parties, and it's directly related to Article 11.4 of the Convention, as you know. So your support in this regard would be essential, and I think it will help us all to have these provisions in place to assist also for a better understanding of the list of World Heritage in danger. And I have written up my notes a couple of days ago, but actually I saw that Spain is providing also an amendment under 8C.3, which goes into this direction, Mr. Chair. And with this, I close. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So after these comments, should we... Cuba, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. Solamente una pregunta, nos llama, siempre es interesante estos resúmenes finales de la información, pero tengo entendido que había una propuesta de inscripción que fue devuelta a los estados parte, en este caso, y no la vi reflejada en la información que se nos suministró.
Thank you. Alessandro, please. Can you answer?
If I understood the question, there was a referral missing from... yes, of course. One inscription that became a referral. It was not mentioned in this list of let's say the recommendation that have been changed in the decision. We can add it, of course.
Thank you very much. Tanzania, please.
Thank you, Chair. Tanzania has been following the issue of danger listing with great interest. Tanzania has an experience of having several properties on the danger list. We are highly experienced on how we get financial, material support from other state parties. We do appreciate the support that was extended to Tanzania from our friends. And once again, we thank these state parties. Danger listing is not objected by Tanzania. Tanzanians' concern is the procedure on how properties are put on the danger list. Tanzania, as said above that we are experienced, knows what danger listing can do in terms of funds mobilization. Chair, Tanzania clearly understands that paragraph 179 and the 180 of the operational guidelines puts conditions that qualifies a property to be on the danger list. And the paragraph 183 to 189 put up a procedure that should be followed by the committee to list a property on the danger list. In this presentation, we see a proposal in the draft decision convincing state parties not to view danger listing negatively. We understand their sentiments, and we do not say that danger listing is bad, only that the procedure is not right, according to our own understanding. Maybe at this juncture, Chair, we request a legal advisor to enlighten us on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Tunisia, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. La Tunisie souhaite remercier le Centre de nous avoir donné toutes ces informations qui, présentées ainsi, nous donnent une vue générale et quelque part une vue globale de la situation dans laquelle à la fois cette session s'est déroulée, mais aussi dans la continuité des autres sessions. Je voudrais, à l'instar de l'honorable délégué de la Tanzanie qui a tout à l'heure évoqué la question de la liste en péril, je crois que de cette session se dégage une situation de malaise par rapport à cette catégorie de notre Convention et c'est de notre responsabilité de réfléchir quant à son évolution. Son évolution propre parce que c'est un outil de protection et de mise des États partis devant leurs responsabilités une fois qu'ils inscrivent des listes sur le patrimoine, mais également, et cela a été évoqué dès l'ouverture de notre session, la question de sa propre perception. Continuer à la regarder comme un élément homogène, je crois, ne correspond plus à la réalité. Nous avons vu, lors de cette session, des États partis solliciter le comité d'inscrire un bien sur cette liste. C'est une catégorie, c'est un état d'esprit. Nous avons vu, dans d'autres cas, les organes consultatifs, le centre et le comité souhaiter inscrire des biens sur la liste du patrimoine en péril, mais les États étaient quelque part mal à l'aise par rapport à la perception que cela se dégagerait si cette décision était prise. Je crois que c'est notre responsabilité de réfléchir à l'évolution de cet élément important et de cet outil important de notre Convention, bien entendu en gardant à l'esprit la finalité protectrice que cette catégorie s'était donnée depuis l'écriture et l'adoption de cette Convention. La Tunisie souhaite inviter les États partis à une réflexion. On conviendra du moment, mais on est prêt à l'accueillir dès l'année prochaine sur ce point précis pour que, avant la prochaine session, on puisse remettre le fruit de cette réflexion sous forme de proposition. Je crois que nous ne devons plus continuer à éluder ce problème. C'est un problème réel et à nous d'avoir à la fois la responsabilité et le courage de le traiter de manière rapide et, j'espère, efficace.
Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief because I believe that during this session our views on the danger listing and what we mean by it was very amply expressed. We would like to say that we support the amendment that was put forward by Spain. And since we're at this juncture, we would like to say that as members of the committee, we also need to be very careful with the language we're using. We have heard referenced several times during our debates danger listing as punishment, which when it comes from members of the committee goes against the sense of what danger listing actually is. And since we're going to give the floor to the legal advisor and we have just heard the distinguished delegate of Tunisia reflecting on the list of World Heritage in danger, if my understanding is correct, the problem is that the convention in its Article 4 provides only one list of World Heritage in danger, so were we to have different categories would imply changing the convention, which is something that we have amply discussed why it's difficult. But I do agree that maybe we need to have some kind of reflection, but just to say that we do not see how we could have different categories for the danger listing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. China, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to, China wishes to echo the distinguished ambassador of Tunisia in this matter. Danger listing is quite a sensitive issue for many countries. Of course, we fully recognize and really appreciate that some state parties openly invites in danger listing for their property, which we are very happy to see. However, we can also notice during this session that a number of our resolutions. China did not intend to oppose to the wording eventually, but in the wording, in a number of cases, the word endangering, in fact, is, if you read it, it is used as a threat, sort of a warning to those properties or to the management, conservation. So it creates a dilemma. I think some sort of a discussion or seminar perhaps is helpful in the coming months or next year sometime, that we should seriously discussing the tool and also the terminology being used. There are cultural differences, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, during the beginning of our session, that there are cultural differences. Many countries perhaps will try their best to avoid at all costs this terminology being applied to their property. Although we know that the committee's intention is well. It's not ill-intended to labeling anyone or, but in the reality, this term has been used, at least in can be perceived both as a positive encouragement for generating funding, but then on the other hand, it is also used as a threatening or warning sign to parties. So I think there needs to be some sort of understanding eventually being reached. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As far as I have information, the World Center is already planning to do such kind of an event in Romania, and it will be a workshop to assist states parties with the properties on the list of the World Heritage in danger. So this will be a special event which will be giving the explanation and assistance to understand the valuability of this matter. So next speaker is Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think a few of us were caught a little by surprise with the change of the order of agenda items today, and we'd been expecting us to return to 7.2 and 7.3 this afternoon, and it came on quickly this morning, and some delegations may not have had the opportunity to contribute in the way that they had wanted and are now. Firstly, let me say that to go back to the comments that we made very early in this session, where we outlined our thoughts about needs for reforms, changes to the way the state of conservation process works, so that it was more effective in engaging states parties early and continuously in a dialogue with the advisory bodies about the state of conservation of their properties. And I recall also a comment made by one of the African delegations, and I apologise that I can't remember which it was, but made an observation that it would be a really good thing if by the time we got to the point where a place was being recommended for inclusion on the list of World Heritage in Danger, that the work had already been done to identify what those corrective measures were, and that there was a properly costed and timed and sequenced action plan in place and ready to be adopted at the time a place was inscribed on the World Heritage list in danger, rather than that coming afterwards. And that would be, to our way of thinking, a reform worth exploring. The delegate from Uganda has raised the question about whether this agenda item here is the right place to be considering the amendment that has been proposed by Spain, and perhaps it would have been best dealt with under 7, but I don't know whether that can be return to. But we certainly do agree with the proposal that's been put by Spain, and we'll hear from the legal advisor shortly. The interventions from the distinguished delegates of Tunisia and China reflecting on the need for further dialogue around the approach that the committee takes towards the list of World Heritage in danger, and indeed to state of conservations more broadly. That is a dialogue that Australia would warmly welcome and would very much like to participate in, and we would suggest it could be a significant theme for discussion by the committee in China next year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Kuwait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my colleagues from Australia is reading my mind. Just continuing in that, we know it's really important for the dialogue. So that's what's also the state of Kuwait, what we've been observed from the last few days and also the previous meeting. This is a very sensitive issue. It's like a glass of water, it's half. If you're optimistic, you say half full. Pessimistic, you say half empty. So, regarding that, in the session in China, the 44th session, Kuwait will be gladly to host and start the process of hosting a side event to have more discussion in this topic, and hopefully also the outcome of the meeting will be in Romania, as I heard from the center, that's coming soon, even will be discussed further. So at least use that. In the 44th convention, we have a lot of state parties, especially the one where they have sites in dangers, so we hear their notes about it and the obstacles and what's been done. So again, Kuwait will be more than happy to host that side event in China. Thank you.
Thank you very much for proposal. Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to express Bahrain's agreement with our distinguished speakers from Tunisia, Hungary, China, Australia, and Kuwait. Further, we would like to point out that in the Arab region, we had until yesterday 84 sites. There are 86 now, but 22 of them are on the danger list. That's quite a high percentage, actually, but what we find quite difficult is how to help the state parties come off that list, especially if more than half of them are due to armed conflict. And although many of the state parties try their best to protect their sites in spite of all the difficulties, I don't think this will help them remove the site from the danger list. So as we have looked at the stats that was provided by the World Heritage Center about yesterday's and this committee's decisions regarding deferral, referral, and others, we will also inquire if there are any analysis of the sites in danger worldwide and what was the reason behind it. And because a lot of people, recently within this committee meetings, of course, it's a stigma for many of the countries because they look and they understand or they hear that some of these sites have been on the list for 15 years or 20 years or 7 years. So what chance do they have to remove it? So there should be some kind of analysis before we have the meeting next year to understand what were the various categories and what were the reasons, and if we can have a percentage of how many were removed and what was the cause of the danger listing and when and how it was removed. We need to learn more so we can help state parties avoid this, and if they have to, and as Spain has rightly commented or included in the amendment, that it is not a kind of judgment on the country. Sometimes it's natural disaster or a war or whatever, but that should come, this sentence or this paragraph in the amendment should come as a result of the analysis, deep analysis of what were the causes and how long has all the sites in danger, the 53 or whatever, maybe half of them are in Arabia. And that will give us at least a base to start thinking about how we can help the state parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having listened to the previous speakers, we can only agree with the sentiments that there isn't this issue we are facing for many years in this committee, and there is different interpretations of the World Heritage List in danger. And there is also different attitude of the state parties concerning their sites putting in the danger. And we can maybe agree with some sentiments that the listing in danger will give some incentives for the state party to improve the conservation and management, etc. But I agree what has been said previously by the colleague from Bahrain, that we have some cases when they have, for 10, 15 years, the sites are in list in danger, and it doesn't give any impetus for the state parties to remove it from the list. So we need to understand that there are different approaches to this issue, and the views raised here about we have to understand also and to take into account the social and the psychological approaches to this issue, and here we cannot apply one single standards to all cases. We need to understand that for some countries, the listing in danger could be encouraging for them to do something, but for others, it can be discouraging. So in that sense, my delegation supports the idea of having more reflection on this issue. We need to have more analysis to be done to understand the sentiments and the approach and tendencies. And I concur with the idea and support and appreciate the idea of Ambassador Tunisia to organize on an expert level reflections. And what I've heard also from the World Heritage Center, that there are already some actions in this regard. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Norway wishes to echo the wise words of our esteemed colleagues in this very room. And we also take note of the concerns and reservations in relation to cultural perceptions and differences in how we understand the danger listing as an efficient tool for safeguarding of world heritage. And we also support the idea proposed by our colleague from Tunisia and others on a reflection on this problematic issue, and we welcome the initiative of the World Heritage Center in Romania to work on this. And it's something about trying to land on a shared understanding of this danger list more as a possibility list or an opportunities list, because in fact that is what it is. It is an international mechanism which is there for all of us to commit to help in a difficult situation. And in that regard, we also strongly support the amendment proposed by Spain, and whether it fits better here or under 7, we don't know, but we've been asked for a clarification from the legal advisor on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. May I give the floor to Rapporteur to deliver the draft?
Thank you. As we've heard, we have a new proposed paragraph. It would be paragraph 3, proposed by Spain and supported by others. And this would read, recalls that the inscription of a property on the list of World Heritage in Danger should not be viewed negatively by the state party. Its purpose is to marshal international support to help the state party effectively address the challenges faced by the property by engaging with the World Heritage Centre and advisory bodies to develop a program of corrective measures to achieve the desired state of conservation for the property, as provided for under paragraph 183 of the operational guidelines. And I'll just note that we've added World Heritage Centre there, which was missing from the amendment you originally saw.
Thank you. Bosnia, please.
This is not directly related with these comments on the screen, to comment the screen, but discussion what was developed during this last hour we like to add, because many proposed expert meeting is mentioned, but some points what should be discussed. First is this regional debalance. When you see map of the heritage in the UNESCO map of the heritage in the world, and then something what is, from our point, most important is the how to build national capacity. In this aspect, will be interesting to see, for example, for the World Heritage Committee, how they dealing in national legislation, and something what is very important, and this is player in these activities. Question about criteria for selection of the experts evaluator in this process, and something what is mentioned before, how much cost evaluation and time of evaluation, because previous meetings and discussion was like country doesn't have money or advisory body doesn't have money, how long to be on the site, because some sites are for a few days, some sites need 1 month to be studies. And second, how like World Heritage Committee member can support in their region with the advice on the analysis was done yesterday. Brazil in Portugal contribute for the inscription of the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanzania, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to make clear that I'm not opposed to that paragraph, but I wanted to use that paragraph to understand the application of the procedure of putting a site on danger list, because when you read the operation guidelines, you get the impression that there are some guidance, some activities that have to be done before this committee makes a decision. That has been the understanding of our delegation. So we wanted to clarify it from the legal advisor, whether our understanding is the same or maybe we're understanding it in a different way. But I'm not opposed to that paragraph. That paragraph can stay as it is. Thank you.
Can I have a response from the legal advisor, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is the first time that my advice has been requested during the meetings, and I see it as a testament of your able conduct of the meetings, that it's only on the 8th day of proceedings that this is done. In response to the questions that have been asked, of course, I won't take any position regarding the proposal that is on the table, but rather try to answer the questions that would be given. Maybe the first element to recall is that, of course, the convention is for the protection of the world heritage, the world cultural and natural heritage, and that the preamble of the convention mentions the fact that the objective is to preserve that world heritage, and also makes reference to the fact that there may be dangers, threats on those on that cultural heritage. So the inclusion in the danger list enters into that logic. With regard to the question asked by the distinguished delegate, I believe, of Uganda, the process for the inscription into the list in danger is provided for broadly from paragraph 169 and following of the operational guidelines, and then more specifically with regard to procedure in paragraphs 183 and following. With regard to if I may very quickly recall what the process is, there's a process of reactive monitoring, which implies that information may be received by the committee from states parties and other sources with regard to the state of conservation of a property in the World Heritage. Under paragraph 176 of the operational guidelines, the World Heritage Committee may make a decision which includes, under subparagraph C, that when the requirements and criteria set out in paragraphs 177 to 182 are met, for the committee to decide to inscribe the property on the list of World Heritage in danger. And I should point out it adds, according to the procedure set out in paragraphs 183 and following. So the procedure is indeed the one in paragraphs 183 and following. When one turns to paragraph 183, and in response to the question asked, there are a number of steps that are foreseen by the operational guidelines. I will only focus myself on the text, and I trust that my colleagues from the Secretariat may be able to provide information on how this is actually applied in practice. So when considering, says Article 183, that the inscription of a property on the list of World Heritage in danger is possible, the committee shall develop and adopt as far as possible, says paragraph 183, in consultation with the state party concerned, a desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger and a program for corrective measures. Paragraph 184 then explains how that program of corrective measures may be developed. And then paragraph 185 explains that all this is brought to the attention of the committee. And finally, 186 says that the committee shall examine the information available and take a decision concerning the inscription of the property. This is, as far as I understand, the procedure for the inclusion into the list of World Heritage in danger. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I would like to also take this opportunity to answer the question that was asked, I believe, by the distinguished delegate from Hungary regarding the list. I do confirm that, as she rightly pointed out, Article 11, paragraph 4 of the Convention provides for a list of the World Heritage in danger. It refers to a list. Of course, that doesn't mean necessarily that the list may not have subcategories or may be structured in a certain way, in the same way as the list of World Heritage has certain categorizations. But there's of course a list provided for in the Convention. I hope this assists the committee in its work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your explanations. We have still China.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to take the floor again, but this time with regard to the text. Like I said earlier, that I think that there is no established view on the list in danger, whether it's positive or negative. So I think it's not necessarily helpful to put a clause here to saying should not be viewed negatively by the state party. It gives me, I mean, if I'm trying to draw an analogy, it is as if that you hold up a stick to a state, and at the same time you want them to thank you. So I think, you know, the view on the world, the endangered listing is still very much, it's at least complex. And in reality, that we have been using this endangering term, and in the wording of our resolutions, as a kind of a warning or threat. Like I mentioned earlier, China did not choose to oppose to those wording, with the understanding that there are different views. It might be necessary, and that is why we suggest that we should have discussions on this before it should actually be put in the resolution. So if you want to reflect it in the resolution, that's very much in an ideal world, and then you need to put something else reflecting the other views, cultural differences, or in reality, you know, more states perhaps view it negatively as it not being viewed negatively. So thank you.
Brazil, please.
We do not in favor. We're not in favor of putting it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to express that from the point of view of Brazil, this reflection on the World Heritage List in danger is most welcome. And I believe that in this reflection process, we really need to address the question of sites that have been on the World of Heritage in danger for more than 2 decades. If countries should not view this negatively, maybe we should think of ways on how to help the countries with financial resources and also capacity building. When it comes to the paragraph proposed by the distinguished delegation of Spain, I think with your due permission, we cannot ask countries to like that their sites are in the heritage list in danger. For some countries, their sites are a very important source of tourism and therefore of revenue for the country. And I address at this point specifically developing countries and least developed countries. So the way the paragraph is phrased, it seems to address only the, let's say, unwillingness of the country to have the site on the list. But I think that there are so many cases that the country has done nothing to deserve it. The country was struck by a natural disaster and already has many challenges to cope with. So I believe that I fully agree with the intervention made by my colleague of China, and that was the reason why I requested the floor. I believe we could put this paragraph or reflect what Spain would like to see, but in a more positive way. We can't ask countries not to view the list as negatively, but we should encourage international, the committee, the World Heritage Center, international partners to engage more constructively in capacity building and also in allowing the country financial resources to preserve the sites of universal value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanzania, please. Tunisia, sorry, Tunisia.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, je voudrais tout d'abord remercier la délégation de l'Espagne de nous avoir proposé cet ajout parce qu'il est important, parce qu'il reflète une bonne partie de nos discussions et nos désarrois, probablement, lors de cette session. La démarche est bien louable, mais je crains que la perception ne se décrète pas. On ne peut pas, dans un texte, dire « vous devez le lire et l'interpréter d'une certaine manière ». Par définition, le texte est un élément objectif, la perception est un fait subjectif, variable selon les personnes et les situations. Donc, nous appuyons l'idée, mais nous voudrions proposer une légère modification de ce paragraphe. Si vous pouvez me suivre, j'arrive à ne doit pas être perçu négativement par l'État partie, et on enlèverait cela. Et on aurait une phrase, rappelle que l'inscription d'un bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril a pour but de mobiliser un soutien international pour aider l'État partie. Je crois que c'est un rappel et cela fait l'écho de nos travaux et des dossiers qu'on a eu à traiter, parce que obliger un État partie à avoir une perception déterminée et surtout pas négative est une question me paraît hasardeuse, d'autant plus qu'on a eu entre les mains des projets de décision où il est spécifiquement indiqué à l'État partie, si un certain nombre de choses ne sont pas faites, vous serez, ou en tous les cas, proposition de mise sur la liste sera faite une session ultérieure. Ça veut dire que la démarche est une démarche qui, précisément, est négative. Donc voilà, je ne sais pas ce que les distingués représentants de l'Espagne pensent de notre proposition par rapport à leur paragraphe. Voici comment on pourrait à la fois faire acte ou rendre le fruit de notre discussion perceptible au niveau de ce paragraphe 3 sans arriver à imposer une interprétation déterminée.
Thank you very much. May I inform you that we are a little bit behind the schedule, so I will have 3 more interventions, Kuwait, Tanzania, and Norway, and that's it. After that, we will proceed to the text. Okay, thank you. Kuwait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like also, well, our intervention was echoed from the previous speakers. I think our message is showing the state parties that, you know, putting the site on endangered list, it's a positive thing. So also that should be reflected on the wording of the draft or for the draft decision. We suggested this instead from the word negatively to be removed, and instead of that to add need to reinforce the positive outcomes of the mechanism of the World Heritage List endangered. So let me say it again, to reinforce the positive outcomes of the mechanism of the World Heritage List endangered, instead of the, yes.
Thank you. Tanzania, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. As a follow-up to my question, that we have heard from the legal advisor, and that is exactly what Tanzania understood on those paragraphs. And for the last 4 years, we have been in this committee, we have been putting sites on danger lists without following those procedures. We know we are conservators. Sometimes we have to act so that we save the sites. It's not our own making, but it's a situation that comes into what we have been doing. So for that matter, Chair, I'll go along with the other speakers who talked about the reflection on looking into the danger listing, how we can put it in different levels, and also from the center they have agreed that they're taking it up, but also try to see these paragraphs in case they are a problem. See if we can amend them and make them so that they can be understood. Because what the third parties response see, once you put a site on danger list, they would ask you why was the procedure not followed? And nobody could be answering that question. So we are very happy to go along with those who said there should be a reflection, try to see how we can streamline the danger listing, even seeing how we can put the danger listing in a better wording so that it can make it more understandable depending on the culture, the attitude, and the education of different people. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Norway now, please.
Thank you, Chair. We are having an extremely important discussion here now. We're at the very core of this convention. And we wish to thank the distinguished ambassador from Tunisia for helping out a very tired head after many days, and for his wise proposal to take out this sentence. So we support the proposal from Tunisia. Thank you.
I asked not to go further with the debates. If you insist, it's okay, but it will be the last one, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and sorry for seeking the floor again. We're just now considering quite a complex recommendation, and it can be improved with a little simplification, but our delegation would be very comfortable with the proposal that was made by the distinguished delegate of Tunisia. But I think that if that was accepted, then perhaps we could ask our distinguished colleague from Kuwait whether he would be happy to also support that amendment rather than the one he has proposed.
Thank you very much. So we came to the consensus.
Yes,
Rapporteur, please.
Thank you. So I will have a go at reading this. Recalls that the inscription of a property on the list of World Heritage in Danger no, I think we've crossed out some we're not meant to there. Needs to reinforce the positive outcomes of the mechanism of the World Heritage List in Danger. And I think, and aims to marshal international support would work. So we'll just let the typing catch up as track changes is difficult. Oh no, we've agreed Tunisia's, okay, so we'll just delete the Tunisian proposal in its entirety. Recalls that the inscription of a property on the list of world...
Wait, Kuwait's proposal. You have to delete Kuwait's proposal and to leave Tunisian one.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that it aims to marshal or at marshalling international support to help the state party effectively address.
We can adopt it like that. Thank you very much. So I'm proposing to approve this item in whole. So I invite you to declare the decisions 43.8C1, 8C2, and 8C3 to be approved as we agreed. Thank you very much. So now we move to the 8, I think. 8. Are we moving to General 8 now?
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
General 8. General 8.
We have still 10 minutes, and I hope that we will manage to put it through. It was decision done on Friday morning that we will proceed with the approval of the decision 43.8 at the end of the debates on item 8A through 8E. Now we are approaching to this matter, so any other comments coming, or Australia? You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I intervene only to say that my understanding is that the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on World Heritage is looking for the opportunity to make an intervention on this item, and we would certainly welcome a hearing from the forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready?
Over there.
So you are ready?
Yep.
The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on World Heritage. The forum advocates on behalf of Indigenous peoples across the globe, across all World Heritage sites. We are concerned about the number of interjections from Indigenous peoples at consecutive World Heritage Committee meetings about the negative impacts on our human rights and livelihoods. We heard very strongly from speakers at the forum's side event call for free, prior and informed consent and full and effective participation of Indigenous peoples to be implemented across the processes of the World Heritage Convention. Without this consent, there are significant significant devastating impacts on our social, cultural, spiritual, emotional and economic well-being. These actions can sometimes end up in a loss of our food and water sources, our connection and access to our traditional lands and waters, and loss of our Indigenous knowledge, languages and traditions, forced displacements, and at the very worst, a loss of lives. We call on state parties to work with us to continue to manage this balance so that we can pass on a healthy, natural and cultural environment to our future generations. Therefore, it is critically important that through consultation and free, prior, informed consent is properly implemented throughout all the processes of the World Heritage Convention, from tentative listing to nomination, assessment, inscription, management and monitoring, and that parties ensure full effective participation of Indigenous peoples before making any decision that would have direct and indirect impacts on our lands, territories and our rights. Free, prior, informed consent is a fundamental collective right for Indigenous people's survival and for us to be able to continue our traditional lives and cultural practices. We urge the World Heritage Committee and state parties to respect our right to free, prior and informed consent in all the decision-making processes and the implementation of it. Finally, Mr Chair, on behalf of Indigenous peoples, I want to thank Canada and Australia for their generous donations that contributed to the participation of Indigenous peoples from the regions to attend this important World Heritage meeting. We encourage other state parties to contribute to the participation of Indigenous peoples at future World Heritage meetings. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Thank you very much. May I give the floor to advisory bodies to comment? Commence, please.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. L'ICOMOS et l'UICN accueillent favorablement l'initiative du comité d'introduire le point 8 à l'agenda de cette session. Celle-ci offre l'opportunité de mettre en lumière les tendances actuelles en matière d'évaluation des propositions d'inscription en général et d'engager la réflexion sur certains sujets plus spécifiques. Vous trouverez des éléments de réflexion proposés par l'ICOMOS dans l'introduction du volume d'évaluation. Il porte notamment sur les zones tampons et les paysages culturels. L'ICOMOS poursuit son travail sur les défis concernant l'évaluation des sites associés aux mémoires de conflits récents et une consultation internationale d'experts provenant de disciplines variées, incluant le droit et l'anthropologie et de toutes les régions, vient d'être lancée. Les organisations consultatives notent que certains changements apportés par le comité sur des décisions sont soutenus par des informations complémentaires soumises après la date limite statutaire du 28 février, lesquelles n'ont pu être évaluées. Le processus sur l'état de conservation peut être utilisé afin de s'assurer que les recommandations sont mises en œuvre, mais cela ne permet pas d'évaluer cette information complémentaire qui parfois touche à la valeur universelle exceptionnelle d'un bien. Une réflexion sur cette question serait bienvenue. Les organisations consultatives ont concentré leurs efforts ces dernières années sur l'amélioration du dialogue, notamment au cours du processus d'évaluation, et ce dans un souci d'améliorer son efficacité et sa transparence. Toutefois, les contraintes financières et la pression du calendrier très serré du processus d'évaluation ne permettent pas d'aller aussi loin qu'il serait souhaitable en matière de dialogue. Dans cette perspective, l'ICOMOS et l'UICN renouvellent leur engagement dans la réflexion lancée par le comité sur la réforme des processus de proposition d'inscription. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. IUCN, do you have any comments? No. Together, okay. Thank you very much. So I have amendment to the text. Rapporteur, you are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received amendments proposed by Hungary, Norway and Australia. They would add an additional paragraph 2, recalling decision 42.8, adopted at its 42nd session, Manama 2018. Former paragraph 2 amended to read, notes the concerning trend whereby decisions are deviating from the recommendations of the advisory bodies. Former paragraph 3 remains unchanged. And then a new paragraph 5. Also recalling that the operational guidelines set out the conditions for inscription on the World Heritage List strongly reiterates that only meeting criteria is not enough to warrant inscription as to be deemed of outstanding universal value. A property must also meet the conditions of integrity and authenticity in the case of cultural properties, and must have an adequate protection and management system to ensure its safeguarding as outlined in paragraph 78 of the operational guidelines. A new proposed 6th paragraph urges states parties with nominations to be examined not to submit new information concerning their nominations after 28 February in the year which the nomination is considered, and requests that this deadline be rigorously enforced. And a new paragraph 7. Taking note of the discussions at the present session of the World Heritage Committee concerning the referral mechanism, requests the review of the referral procedure and its application be included for examination in the framework of the ongoing reflection on the revision of the nomination process. And paragraph 8 remains unchanged. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand we're proceeding very quickly, so I assure you I will be very short. Actually, I have a question for the Secretariat. It is our understanding that this item will become a standing item, so there is no more need to re-request every year that it be included in the agenda of the next session. I just wanted to have a clarification on that to be sure. Thank you.
Mrs. Rossler, please.
That was my understanding, but we are in the hands of the committee. If they don't want to have it, we will not bring it up, but at the moment it is. Thank you.
Kuwait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Kuwait is committed to the World Heritage Convention and its reform process to enhance the credibility of the convention and transparency of the decision-making process. And to implement the previous statement, I would like to mention 2 things. During this convention, Kuwait is committed to improve the capacity buildings in the African region and the Arab region in collaboration with the World Heritage Center and the Advisory Board to increase the number of expertise in the Advisory Board and their numbers and their expertise. And also, before we became member of this committee, Kuwait is always holding before this committee an expert meeting in Kuwait for 3 days from all Arab region. They are hosted in Kuwait to discuss all the files will be brought in this convention. An outcome of that expert meeting, they will give us a recommendation to help us in the decision makers in the convention. Since it's an established method of a practice to review the nomination cases put forward by state parties on a case-by-case basis, and considering that committee members propose amendment that deviate from the recommendation delivered by the advisory bodies this year during our sessions in Baku, if we insist in labeling this deviation concerning a trend, then we need to rethink the mission of the committee in light of this concern. This is a question up for discussion. Should we redefine the role of the committee in deliberation and in taking decision regarding the inscription of the World Heritage List? We believe that deviation continues to occur due to discussion and dialogue. We have witnessed that deviation occurred not only at the committee, but also in the whole decision-making process. Hence, there is a need to approach the nomination process reform in a holistic and consistent manner. We would like to request clarification on which basis cases of deviation are positively encouraged and applauded as we witnessed during this meeting, and in which cases of deviation are considered a direct threat to the credibility of this convention. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now I propose the following. I will give the floor to Angola now, and after that let us make a break, and maybe during the lunchtime you will have some other consultations between each other, and we will come to the continuation of the discussion at the beginning of the afternoon session. So please note that now the floor is going to Angola, and then we make a break. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je suis d'accord avec vous. Peut-être on reviendra après le lunch pour apporter d'autres éléments après consultation. Mais nous voulons juste réagir par rapport au paragraphe 7. Donc je pense que c'est une proposition que nous avons faite hier. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec ce que la Hongrie, la Norvège et l'Australie proposent. Mais nous voulons, au lieu de dire la présente session, qu'on dise clairement la 43e session. C'est beaucoup plus précis, comme ça on évite. Donc on remplace présente par la 43e session. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I see only one more intervention applied from Tunis. So you're welcome, and that's it. Okay, thank you. Then we'll go to break.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, mais je crois qu'il y avait d'autres délégations qui avaient demandé avant nous, donc on est prêt à attendre la pause déjeuner et on contribuera dans l'ordre chronologique de la demande de notre parole. Merci pour votre proposition, mais je crois qu'il y avait d'autres délégations où je me trompe. Je crois qu'il y a d'autres délégations qui ont demandé la parole, donc on attendra notre tour, il n'y a pas de souci.
Okay, let's continue, beginning with your intervention, and then there will be Cuba, China, and Hungary. Thank you very much, and the others. At 3 o'clock. Thank you, have a nice time.